Hello and welcome to Views on News. I'm your host Rafae Iqbal, and in today's show we'll be talking about the US elections, the most happening event in the Democratic front all across the globe. As all eyes are set towards the United States of America, tomorrow, 5th of November, is the day the Americans go to polls. Of course, there were pre-poll ballots that were being cast as well, but now that process has stopped. Regarding 5th of November, it's a tightly contested race. We have two top contenders for the post of who's going to be sitting in the White House. Of course, the post of the American president. The top two contenders are the Republican former President Donald Trump. Against him is the Democratic Vice President Kamala Harris. It's a neck-on-neck contest that we're seeing at the moment, as the poll surveys also suggest. It's a very tightly contested race. And of course, the poll surveys are also subject to margin of error. We know that the campaigns, the electoral campaigns, they have come down to the key swing states, the 7 swing states that everyone has been talking about, and all the undecided voters. We know the American society stands polarized at the moment, but of course, we know that these swing states and these undecided voters are going to have a lot of weight in these elections. The other factors that are going to have a significant kind of impression on these elections are going to be the domestic factors such as healthcare, immigration, women's rights and the economy. We know there's a lot of emphasis being laid down on unemployment as well. There's a lot of emphasis being laid down on women's rights, and with regards to Donald Trump's campaign, we know a lot of emphasis has been laid down on immigration policies as well. Apart from that, as a kind of different move from what we see in the American elections, foreign policy is also having a weight in these elections, which typically did not, because we know that the conflict in the Middle East with regards to Israel's atrocities in Gaza, there's a lot of Muslim population in America as well that is considering what the future for the region is going to be, and what both the candidates, what kind of policies they are going to be having with regards to curbing down these tensions and diffusing the already spiraled conflict in the Middle East. In the studios, we've been joined by senior analyst Agha Haroon, and on Skype we've been joined by Dr. Jamil Khan, and we'll deliberate on the American elections in detail. Coming towards the studios, Mr. Agha, how would you define the American elections? Of course, the campaigns that we're seeing right now, the temperatures are charged, and we also know both the candidates, they have come down to the 7 swing states. How do you comment on the political temperatures in America right now?
Thank you so much. Actually, American elections are, you can say, somehow or other, results are already known. It can be, you can say, different snap polls, or you can say Wall Street journals and Washington Post and other editorials. They can give you the pulse of people. And as you mentioned already about Gaza conflict, whosoever is in White House, it doesn't make any difference, because America has never ever been veto anything which is against or was against Israel. So Israel foreign policy is very categorical. This is the foreign policy of the Americans, not the White House or the Pentagon. So I was simply, you can say, amazed to listen many analysts in Pakistan in Urdu and English, in both you can say languages particular, and I mean surprising to read their articles also. They were all saying, oh, the American elections are very important, significant reference to the Gaza, and Gaza is very significant to American elections. It has nothing to do with anything. Americans always stands with Israel. Americans, not the America. So this is what we will face now. But there are some surprise for Ukraine war. Very, very lethal surprise for European Union maybe, because Trump and his vice president, I mean proposed vice president, if they would come in power, they have already said, we damn care Ukraine.
Well, Trump even said he'll defuse the war in 24 hours.
Yes, 24 hours. And this will be a, you can say, a jolt for the European Union particularly, because European Union has, you can throw everything in fire to for standing with America on this particular war, which is the endless war till now. And this you can say NATO couldn't find anything out of it. So this was actually NATO war. And if you talk about the NATO, you have seen the behavior of Trump in his last presidency about NATO. Even NATO is very clear. Why should we with you? Why should we pay you for that?
So an anti-war policy.
Yes, he will not indulge, or you can say he will not intervene so much in Ukraine war as it was done by Democrats. And we will see what would be the result of next 5 to 6 months, because you know there would be winter, and winter is very, very crucial and critical in Ukraine war.
Definitely. Coming back to the US elections, I'd like to include comments from Dr. Jamil Khan as well. So, the 5th of November, tomorrow, the Americans go to polls, a tightly contested race, as the poll surveys say, with subject to margin of error. Of course, on one side, we see Donald Trump. On the other, we have Kamala Harris. There's a lot of domestic factors in play as well, which the Americans consider when they vote for someone, which also include healthcare, immigration, economy, and of course women's rights as well. How do you comment on the American politics at the moment, and what should we expect tomorrow?
The internal politics, obviously, the three very important features which both candidates have tried to really capitalize. One is the economy, the second is the immigration, and other from external point of view. The Gaza is not really in the debate unless the questions were asked by the journalists and by the people there. On the Gaza, that's foreign policy of the United States. So Gaza, the foreign policy doesn't seem to be changing. There could be a minor adjustment in that, and I'm coming on that as well. So basically, it's the economy and immigration, and obviously the health, particularly with regard to the women health and the abortion. So these 3 points, and women health and abortion on one side, Trump is capitalizing on whatever he has been advocating, from the religious standpoint and from the standpoint of his party. But Kamala Harris is very straight and open, and therefore today the poll of the Iowa is 56-36. Now Kamala has gained 56% in Iowa, and that is basically there are people with the white origin. So it appears that the white woman, also those who have been having leaning towards Donald Trump, seems that they are also, and there are a few interviews which I have also watched and listened. It appears that the Kamala Harris is going to capitalize on that. So very tight drop, 1% difference last 72 hours. Kamala Harris has gained, and she is attaining a trajectory. But then this is such a complex voting system in United States that popular vote is on that is one aspect, and the electoral college votes is the other aspect. So like in 2016, popular vote was pocketed by Hillary, but otherwise Joe Biden, otherwise Donald Trump, he got 304 electoral college vote, and that's why he became declared. So the popular vote he could not, and there was 5 or 6 occasions only in the history of United States that it has happened. Most of the time, the popular vote and the electoral college vote, they coincide, and basically most of the provinces, what they do is that they do winner for all. All the votes go to the winners normally. The other point is Kamala Harris, first time probably tomorrow, as I said, there's going to be a very tight rope because of the electoral college vote, and because of the certain white-dominated population, and that includes swing states also. which has more electoral college vote and electors in those provinces are more. So that can change the dynamics. So it's a very kind of a situation where one can't really 100% draw any result of it. One of those very close and tough time which we are encountering. As regard, this was the internal the campaign points, but the external, the foreign policy, the Muslim population, 35 million Muslim population, what is their attitude and standpoint, and which side do they have the leaning? It's very tough again for them to take this decision. However, it is the indication which we're getting from here that the Muslim communities were not very happy once they saw that on one side there was a all rhetoric of the peace plan and ceasefire, and on the other side there was a full-blown supply of the arms and ammunition. On the other side, there are about 85,000 tons of the bombs and explosive and equipment have been transported to Israel since October the 7th. So that is another factor. Is there going to be any change after the election, either of these candidates in terms of Gaza? Yes, our other panelists, I heard the last portion of it. It doesn't seem that there would be any change. However, it appears that Donald Trump is more liked in Israel as compared to Kamala Harris, although the Israeli lobby, and they are very strong in the United States, where they work on both parties, where they have the influence on the Democrats as well as Republican Congress, the institution, State Department, the Treasury Department, the Pentagon, the CIA, and most of Wall Street. So all these places, they are quite influential, the Israeli lobby, and therefore the election election definitely gets affected by that. That is one aspect, but more importantly, the congressmen and women, once they are elected, once they go to the Congress, the floor of the House, you will not find the congressman or woman talking very strongly against Israel. Very seldom you'll find just one or two voices.
Right. Dr. Jamil, that's some very important points that you raised. I'd also like to include Mr. Agha in the conversation as well. Sir, as Dr. Jamil, he made reference to the 2016 elections in the US. In the 2016 elections, we saw internet played a very important role in determining what the voters' sentiment was going to be, what the trends were going to be. And since 2016 up till now, we've come a long way in digital progress. How do you think internet and social media, along with algorithms and data, they are influencing democracy in this digital age?
First of all, I 100% agree with Dr. Jamil sir. If you talk about the change, or you can say a semiotic influence of AI and digital media, I can be wrong, I can be right. I think this is fewer than last time, little less, because everybody knows and understand, even you and me, that elections are being manipulated by social media and definitely by AI, as you mentioned. So whosoever is going to vote, he understands whatever I am watching in my mobile, because I have a echo chamber, and this is the filter bubble which is providing me what I am usually wish to know. So the consciousness is higher than it was in 2016. Right. It is not in only America, even in Pakistan. Everywhere. If you remember, there was a political party which was everywhere because its social media was very strong. But that party is nowhere because people understand. Although media is still social media is still very strong, because the people understand that this gadget is being used to manipulate or influence our mindset.
Definitely. Dr. Jamil, I'd like your views on as well with regards to that. Do you think in these modern digital times, do you think AI, of course, internet and social media, it has moved on and progressed towards artificial intelligence now. When we talk about democracy, when we talk about voter trends, and of course when we talk about voter sentiments as well, do you think in these times of algorithms, data, this artificial intelligence and internet could be weaponized with terms in regards to democracy?
That's a tool of the social media, an algorithm that is being used by almost all the marketing companies and almost all the multinational companies. And almost now it is being used even for the public diplomacy. We can't really say that it would not have an influence. It definitely has an influence on the mind and hearts of the people, and therefore this is one of the best tools which is being used, algorithm, for targeting the right type of customers. And likewise, during the elections also, this data and this algorithm and this particular technology, it definitely targets the people who have not made up their mind yet, those who are strong voters and supporters. And that's why you might have noticed that the blue states are now turning red, and some of the red states are now turning blue, which means some of the Democrat dominated states are now being taken over by the Donald Trump, and the Republican dominated states are being taken over. So these are the tools which are.
Mr. Jamil, that is why I was asking this question, because Donald Trump, he has sponsors that of course are very influential on social media, whereas we saw that Kamala Harris, she opted for the more conventional media, that is television and those sources, for their political campaigns. I was asking this question in particular because I wanted to differentiate if running political campaigns, running political advertisements on social media would be proving more effective than conventional media in these modern times, especially with regards to all the swing states, the undecided voters, and that Generation Z that is going to be casting their ballots for the first time.
Well, this question seems to be directed to me. So yes, that's why there is more than $10 billion fundraising of Kamala Harris. And she has spent almost all money except about 100 million is left for the last 24, 36 hours. They have spent all this money, on the advertisement and the political campaign and also social media. So there are multiple tools which are applied for it, and including billboard, including campaigns, including door knocking, leaflets. So name any, and all these tools are being conventional as well as these social media and AI are being used for it. And in the modern day world, in all fields, now it happens to be election and campaigning of the election. So yes, that is also being used, and it does have some difference. And that's why you see last 72 hours, Kamala Harris now has gained a trajectory of the voters and supporters, as at least so far as the polls are concerned, and very, very renowned companies who have conducted poll, although there is always not amounting to murder.
Dr. Jamil, I think we're having trouble reconnecting with you. We can't hear you. Dr. Jamil, we'll try reconnecting with you. Dr. Jamil was highlighting the American elections, the different aspects that are playing a significant role and are having weight in these elections. We were right now talking about internet and this digital age. Of course, artificial intelligence is also having a lot of impact in the elections, in shaping up the minds of the voters. And of course, moving towards the swing states, we know social media is also having an impact on those, especially the undecided voters, as with the voter sentiments, the voter trends, they do get shaped up with the kind of content that we see on social media, and this is going to play a very vital role with regards to the swing states and those undecided voters that have still yet to decide who they're going to be vote for. Tomorrow is the day the Americans will be going to the polls, and of course we know everyone knows at this moment whoever's going to have a more of a spontaneous presence on social media will have a bigger chance of trying to gather and woo those voters as well. If we talk about the influence on social media and the campaign dynamics that both the candidates are having on the social media, as Dr. Jamil also highlighted, Kamala Harris is opting for more conventional methods, whereas if you look at the political campaign of Donald Trump, we know he has sponsors that such as Elon Musk, who is of course the CEO of Twitter at the moment. We also know that his campaign is being supported by a lot of social media influencers that will definitely have an impact in shaping up the minds of the Generation Z as well. A lot of them being first-time voters who will be casting their ballots for the first time. Dr. Jamil Khan, former ambassador, thank you for your valuable insights. Of course, it's always a pleasure to have you on PTV World. Senior analyst Agha iqrar Haroon, I'd like to thank you as well. It's always a pleasure to have you. Thank you for your time and being part of the conversation. Now we're moving towards the United States of America, where my co-anchor Jawad Tehami has been talking to different analysts. He has been talking to the American people, and he has been trying to gather information on what the American people are thinking at the moment, what the voter sentiment is, and what the voter trends are at the moment. Let's move towards Jawad to see what the temperature is at America at this very moment.
Hello and welcome to this special segment of Views on News regarding the US presidential elections. Just a couple of days are left from here onwards when the Americans are going to decide who is going to be their next president, the 47th president of the United States of America. And without wasting any further moment, let me introduce a very special, a very wonderful guest who has taken time out exclusively today for Views on News to talk about various aspects of this particularly hotly contested elections between the Republican candidate, former President Donald Trump, and Democrat candidate Kamala Harris. So we are honored and really privileged to be joined by none other than Mr. Jawad Tehami. He is a senior political analyst and also a political consultant to electoral campaigns and elected officials. He is the first Pakistani to be appointed to a presidential campaign. Mr. Tehami, thank you very much for your time, for being with us on this special segment of Views on News regarding US presidential election. We are really honored.
Thank you very much, Jawad. I'm really excited and happy to be here. It's a very exciting time in America right now. Elections are just a few days away from us.
Yeah, so I can see around, I've covered the political gatherings, the political rallies, the political temperature keeps on rising with every single passing day, and people really seem enthusiastic about this particular election. Let's see who is going to turn out to be victorious on the election day. So let's try to simplify the things for our viewers back in Pakistan, that how American president is elected and what is that electoral college.
So it's, in Pakistan and in a lot of places, I think it is the popular vote. Whoever wins the most votes wins. That's the general notion. In the United States, it's a little bit different. And then there are layers to that. What we have over here is called the Electoral College. And you need 270 votes out of 538 to become the president of the United States. And that's like a very simplified version, and I can get into more detail as we go.
Okay, so you just talked of the road to 270. These are 538 in total electoral college votes. So when we talk about the electoral college, there is a rule when we talk about 48 states in the United States of America. Out of those total 50 states, the winner gets it all. What does that mean?
So it's a system that was devised, that United States is really big and population is scattered all over 250 years ago. So they wanted to have equal representation of people from far and wide. So what they did was that United States have the Congress, which is like the parliament in Pakistan, and each state is allotted number of seats depend on population. So one district or congressional district is about 750,000 people. That's one district. So if you have only 750,000 people in your state, you get one vote, one electoral vote.
Okay.
If you have 1.5 million people, you get two votes. So on and so forth. So for example, California is extremely populated, right? Very, very populous state. California has 54 votes, right? So that
That's a big
number, that's a big number. Texas has 40 some. New York State itself has 28. So the more populous states will have the larger number of those electoral votes, which are basically based on the number of congressional districts. That is the basic concept.
Okay, so out of those 50 states, 48 states have that same rule. The winner takes it all.
Yes.
What about the other two, those two exceptions, Nebraska and Maine? How do we calculate or count the votes from there?
So, of course, they have their own thing. Um, two states, which is, it sounds so complicated, but it's not. So, Nebraska, for example, has 5 votes. Nebraska has 3 congressional districts, so they can technically get only 3 votes. But what they have done is they said that, look, the person who wins the popular vote will get 2 votes. But the person who wins the congressional district, so let's say before Obama, Nebraska used to have all Republican districts. But when Obama ran and won, he flipped one district, and that district became a Democratic district. So now Nebraska had a split of 4 votes because 2 congressional districts was Republican, and the popular vote went to Republican, but one district went to Democrat, and that vote.
Do you think these two states can actually make when it comes to the outcome of the elections?
Oh, of course, every vote, right? I mean, United States as such that they're definitely Republican states, and then they're definitely Democrat states, then they're swing states.
But that very word, the term that you just used, swing states, or viewers, the battleground states as they are known over here, I'd like to ask Mr. Trinzi as to why these, how many number of these swing states are there and why they are called so.
So, something like New York, right, where we are. New York, and I'll give you population data so viewers can understand better. So New York State has about 20 million people that live in New York State.
Mm-hmm.
Out of 20 million people, 10 million people live strictly in New York City. Mm-hmm. And majority of them, and I would say about 70, 80% are pure Democrats, right? Outside of that, we are in the suburbs right now. There are about another 7.5 million people. Mm-hmm. And out of here, it's about a 45-55 margin, where 55% are Republican, but 45%. Mm-hmm. So out of 17 million people that live downstate, which is where we are, down of New York, there are about good, 10 million people who are Democrats.
Right.
Right? And then the rest of New York State, where upstate, whatever they are, they're mostly Republicans. But because there's such a high concentration of Democrats down here, majority they vote Democrats, and let's say there's 10.2 million people who vote for Democrats and 9.8 million vote for Republican. Unfortunately, that 9.8 million people vote don't count.
Okay.
So they voted for Republican, but those 28 votes in New York State will all go to Democrats.
Okay.
So it's kind of an unfair advantage because you're saying I'm voting for X amount, whatever, Republican, right?
So do we understand that their voice or their understanding who could be the best candidate to be the president of the United States of America doesn't matter at all?
That's a tricky question, right? Because in addition to of course, their electoral college, the same people are voting for the members of Congress, where there is just a popular vote, right? So for example, where we are on Long Island, it used to be 2 districts. There were Democrats and 2 Republican. Now all 4 of them have become Republican. Okay. And that's just a popular vote. So yes, they may not get the president, or their vote may not count towards the electoral vote, but they control the Congress now, which is the direct balance to the presidency. Because, you have the executive branch, which is the White House. Then you have the legislative branch, which makes most of the laws, which counterbalance the White House, which is the Congress. So the popular vote does count, but I think it's so complicated. If you ask me, most Americans just vote, right? And I don't think they understand the science behind it.
I've covered a number of polling stations. People have gathered over there. They're going. I've seen queues formed over there. People are going for early voting. There are a couple of reasons. By any chance, if you miss or there is a limitation to you to go and cast your vote on the election day, perhaps you can avail this particular option. So until so far, the media reports 70 million people
Yeah.
have already cast
Yeah.
their votes. How
Absolutely.
big that number is, and can we predict at this particular moment from those early cast votes that who is leading?
So surprisingly enough, it's less than 2020. In 2020, 85 million people had already voted by this time.
Okay.
So it's still 20% less than what it was in 2020. Some indications are that, which the Democrats are hoping to really rally in on, is that among all the voters, because they don't, you can't tell who they voted for, but they have like the genders, the markers, right? So 55% of the women and about 45% of the men have voted. Now, Democrats, because their biggest talking point was the abortion and the rights for women to have an abortion, they're hoping that the 10% more women that have voted are the voters who are going to vote for Democrats because they have made this a campaign issue that it's your right to your own body, so to speak, is on the ballot this year.
Right. Okay, so I'll come to those priority areas, the key issues both either of the candidates actually think, and how their promise or their messages have resonated with the message in general. So when we talk about the predictions, what about the polls? How much margin of error happens to be there? Up till now, how many polls previously, historically speaking, have been considered more accurate?
Up in 2016, for some reason, polls used to be more accurate.
Okay.
And in 2016 and moving forward 2016, and people say there are like multiple variables, but after 2016, every single poll had Hillary Clinton winning. Every poll. And then Donald Trump ended up winning, right? And they said that because Donald Trump was such a polarizing figure, oftentimes people on the polling wouldn't say that they're voting for Donald Trump, but they end up voting for him because he was just very polarizing, right? So from 2016 onwards, people don't believe in polls, and in every poll, 2.5% standard is a margin of error.
Right.
So plus minus 2.5%.
Like, for example, in those swing states, one of the swing states, presumably, if in one of those swing states, for example, Pennsylvania, if Donald Trump is having the lead against Kamala Harris of 2.6% points, so do you think that that's
it's
not
literally just outside of margin of error? Margin of error is 2.5.
Yeah.
So if he is at 2.6,
2.1 decimal.
That's all it is. He's ahead by 0.1 percentage.
Yeah.
Because 2.5 is always considered margin of error.
Okay.
And all of those swing states, either he or she is either 1%, 1.5%, right? And then again, there are certain race demographics, right? Which makes a difference. So, for example, Pennsylvania, majority of the people who live in Pennsylvania vote for Trump, except the population is scarce. The big center of population in Pennsylvania is Philadelphia, and in Philadelphia is African Americans, full of African Americans. So Philadelphia carried for Obama both times. Philadelphia carried Biden in 2020. So if Philadelphia comes out, then unfortunately, because the population, just like we have New York City, 10 million people, half of the state's population live in one city. So if they all come out, 50% votes are right there. So if you just get a little bit more vote outside, you win.
Okay.
So it depends. If Philadelphia comes out, then I know they have a huge rally. Because of the Trump rally a couple of days ago, there was a comedian who called Puerto Rico like a floating island garbage. I know Puerto Ricans are having huge rallies today, all day in Pennsylvania, to pull Puerto Ricans out. And there's 500,000 Puerto Ricans who live in Pennsylvania. So they
have the right to vote?
Yeah, Puerto Ricans automatic. Puerto Ricans is a commonwealth of America. So Puerto Ricans are considered Americans. So they have a right to vote right away, right off the bat.
Okay, so these 7 swing states have 93 electoral college votes collectively out of 530. Right? Pennsylvania having the largest number, 19 electoral votes. I've read a number of analyses regarding Pennsylvania. the analysts by and large think that whoever is going to win this particular state is going to be the new president of
That's
the
it.
United States of America, with 98% increased chances of Donald Trump and 81% increased chances of Kamala Harris.
Yep.
Your understanding. You being yourself the political consultant to the presidential candidate. So how do you think this particular state is going to play out?
I think what you said it is 100%. If you ask me, out of the swing states, so we have Pennsylvania, we have North Carolina, we have Georgia, we have Arizona, we have Nevada, we have Wisconsin, and we have Michigan. These are the 7 states, right? I think Nevada and Arizona is going to go to Harris.
Mhm.
I think Wisconsin and Michigan is going to go to Trump. I think North Carolina and Georgia, North Carolina definitely going to go to Trump. Georgia, Biden carried Georgia
Mhm.
last time.
Last time it was North Carolina only that Trump won. Well, the
Right.
rest of the 6 states went to Biden.
Right. So Georgia also carried, right? I think this time North Carolina and Georgia may go to Trump. And I think Wisconsin and Michigan also. And interesting, so enough, that a lot of Arabs want to vote for Trump.
Mr. Athar Tirmzi, senior analyst and political consultant to electoral campaigns and elected officials, first Pakistani to be appointed to a presidential campaign. Thank you very much for being with us on this special segment of Views on News exclusively. We really appreciate that.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
Hello.
Well, that was Jawad in conversation with the senior analyst Athar Tirmzi. Jawad also talked to female American voters. Let's see what they had to say regarding the political temperatures and who they're going to be vote for and what they're going to be considering when they vote tomorrow.
How is the election process going on in the United States of America, and what's the feeling about?
I was very despondent about a week or two ago with Trump's rally coming up in Madison Square Garden. But now I realize there was a lot of intimidation out there. There was a lot of encouragement from false polls. I believe Kamala Harris is going to win. I believe that Donald Trump is an existential threat to democracy and would be a disaster for America. And I am thrilled to vote for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz today.
So what do you think? What is exactly that particular strength that is going to lead Kamala Harris to victory?
As a woman, I believe a huge part is bodily autonomy for women. I also think this tariff economic piece that Trump is pushing would be, economists, leaders around the world. I just saw that companies are preparing to increase prices now in preparation for Donald Trump becoming president. I just think it's a super slippery slope. If you read Ruth Ben-Ghiat or other people who study fascism, when the media starts self-censoring, when humans start preventing themselves from expressing themselves and not being afraid of their government, I think it's a dangerous place to be, and I think a vote for Kamala Harris prevents that.
It's really a close election this time, so nobody really knows. Nobody has a crystal ball, I think. And that's why a lot of people around me are anxious, including myself.
Okay. So how enthusiastic are the Americans for this election? We've seen quite neck and neck race so far.
Yes.
So how enthusiastic Americans are overall for this particular presidential
I think everyone is very passionate about it because it has been a unique election process with, somebody trying to get back into the White House that has no right to be there, I think.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so
on both sides, yeah, they're passionate people, yeah.
Okay, so what strength do you think the other side has got? Whom you think has got the right to go into the White House?
Well, Kamala Harris has the right to go into the White House.
What are the strengths?
The strengths are that she really cares. She has a heart in the right spot, and she knows how to speak responsibly to people and listen to people, what they need, including the working class. And I think when you're voting the other side, you're actually voting against your own interests. If you're white and working class, you're voting against your own interests if you're voting Donald Trump. It's important for the freedom of the people to to vote Harris because we need to have our democracy in place. I think he already made it clear that he's going to try to do everything to stay in power by being already immune. You know, the court ruled that there is immunity to the presidency, which we didn't have before in that way. So that was the first step. Another step he took was calling every media fake media. So that's just brainwashing of the people right there.